everybody. Rebecca Ryan coming at you live from the shores of Lake Monona, Little Teepee Lake, in the words of the Ho Chunk. Welcome to my Futures Friday, in which I discuss some signals of the future. We talk together about them. And the truth is, I'm still experimenting with how this is going. So, experimenting with the format, experimenting with engagement, because at the end of the day, my number one goal, the whole reason I moved to Substack was to build community. So I've got to be asking myself, like, what am I doing to build community? So thank you for Nisha. Thank you for all of you who are joining now and in the next few minutes. And I'm going to be honest, I'm totally playing with the format because I'm just trying to dial it in. And I'm going to be doing more Substack lives. They're always going to be short. They're usually going to be on Fridays because it's the day I'm usually not on the road. I can usually do them. So hi, Michelle. So we've got a new format today, and I would love it if you would just give me a little bit of feedback on the format. I'm going to hang out in the comments on Substack after this. So if you want to talk some about how it went. So new format is this. I just sent a note about this, but let me just confer here. I'm always going to start with a shout out to somebody I'm really appreciating for their contribution to building brighter futures. Could be somebody dead, could be somebody alive, could be an organization, could be an individual. Then we're going to do some signals. And I'm rarely going to go back to the signal of the week that I publish every Monday. I'm going to bring some new stuff to you, and I'm going to invite you to share what you're noticing, what week signals you're noticing. You don't have to have an answer, but if you do, that's the beauty of the hive mind, right? We all get to help make each other smarter. Then I'm going to share something that's on my desktop. And I don't literally mean like on my desktop, like exactly like that, but something that I'm working on that you might find interesting or you might have linkages to. Again, this is a community. We're here to support each other. We're here. We belong to each other. We have each other. So we're going to keep working on that. Then we're going to do some open mic. So anybody who wants to talk about something, like maybe give a shout out to somebody that you think is doing incredible work, person, organization. And then finally, I'm going to give you a take-home challenge. And I'm going to do this all in 20 to 30 minutes. Are you ready? Let's rock. First, my shout out this morning is actually a merci, and it's to somebody who I thought would be on here, and she is Michelle Thibault. I want to hold Michelle up. If you're not already following her on Substack, please do so. Here are the reasons I love Michelle. I met her when she came to our online futurist camp. We'd always done futurist camp like in a great location, outdoors, no PowerPoints, like no digital anything. You know, we taught the old-fashioned way with a whiskey in our hand around a bonfire. And then COVID happened and we moved it online. And Michelle came to one of our first futurist camps online. And she's like the one person who did all the homework. So that got my attention right there. And then as I got to know Michelle more, she's also an artist. And I know that I have a soft spot in my heart for people who have day jobs, but whose heart is really the heart of an artist. I'm discovering my own heart of an artist right now. 53 years old, it's never too late. She's also an artist. So when you see Michelle on a Zoom, the image that's behind her is something she created herself. So she's a wonderful artist. She is so committed. She shows up to every single one of our Wednesday signals panels. I don't think she's ever missed. I miss often. I don't think she's ever missed. And she is just a good person. Like when our dear colleague Charlie went to Quebec City, Michelle made a point of taking time to meet Charlie and Alan. So I want to give a shout out to a person who I feel like is a rock in this community of building brighter futures, from Reinvention Canada to the work she's doing day to day to how she takes care of her partner and her neighborhood. Michelle Thibault, you are a flipping rock star, and I appreciate you so very much. Okay, give me a second to collect myself. It's time for signals of the week. So what week signals are you noticing around yourself? I'd love for you to write them in the chat if you have them. And again, what is a week signal? A week signal is not a trend. It's not something that's in the mainstream. A week signal is something that is usually happening on the margins. And when you first see it, you may cock your head to the side. I always joke, it's like a dog hearing a harmonica for the first time, right? And most people blow by these weak signals because it doesn't fit like what is in their purview. I get it. I totally get it. But futurists notice and listen for these marginal signals on the edge of society or on the edge of trends that might never turn into a trend, but might. And they're just something to pay attention to. So what weak signals of the future are you noticing? I'm bringing you hot off the press. Yesterday, I was with 300 economic developers in Virginia, and we spent a little bit of time. Thank you to Connie and Vita for hosting me. I asked 2 questions to try to help the audience kind of widen their aperture, to try to help them think more like a futurist. And one of the questions, the second question I asked after I warmed them up a little bit, the second question I asked was, all right, what weak signals have you noticed recently? And we had, there were 300 people in the audience. I think we had 186 responses. And the number one theme was this, the analog digital rebellion. These economic developers are noticing a major pushback against digital overwhelm. And here were 3 examples, quotes that they put into the poll. 1, kids are not using social media. Flip phones or dumb phones are trending. People are having this ache to return to analog. They've noticed more people subscribing again to landlines. And there seems to be a conscious backing away from social media. I don't think I've talked about it with the Futures Friday folks, but I have with our Signals group. And that is 2 doors down from my house, there's a little park called B.B. Clark Beach. And I walk by there every day because it's my route with my dog, right? She's checking her pee mail and we're walking out for a walk. And I have noticed that people younger than me, and I know they're younger than me because they're comfortable taking their clothes off at the beach. People younger than me are opening books. They are reading like hardcover books. I thought I had one here, but I don't. It's over there. And so the bottom line with that is like that caught my attention this summer. I was like, wow, they're not scrolling their phones, doom scrolling. They're reading hardcover books. And sure enough, the U.S. Library of Congress or some sort of American Library Association has done some book buying research, and Generation Z, hi Wayne, Generation Z is one of the fastest growing book buyer markets. So signals of the future, these were the weak signals that the Virginia economic developers noticed, was this move back to analog and away from digital. Would love to know what you're seeing. I'm just going to scroll through the... Okay. Somebody said that the sound was a little crazy. If that continues to be the case, just holla at your girl. Okay. Third segment today is, what am I working on? Well, I've owned Next Generation Consulting for 27 years, and I started it as a speaking business to try to talk about what was coming with the next generation. And what many of you probably don't know is I actually started speaking competitively in the 5th grade. So I was 10 years old. I was in forensics competitions at my elementary school, St. John's Lutheran Elementary School. So I've been talking for a long time. And so, I'm now in my 27th year of my business. I'm 53 years old. So I've basically been for 43 years been speaking competitively. I do not get nervous before talks, but yesterday I was nervous at this talk at VEDA, Virginia Economic Development Association. And I'll tell you why. I was doing a keynote that I'd never done before, and I actually only had the courage to pull the trigger on it the night before. So I wasn't super prepped, even though this stuff is deeply in me. And I know that I've shared some of this with you on Substack, if you follow on Substack. Hi, RD. But I did a keynote around these first principles of foresight. And here's how I arrived at these first principles. We just did our 4th edition of our workbook for how to think like a futurist. And when you start on your 4th edit of a workbook, it is tedious. It's something that I had totally procrastinated. And as I'm getting older, I'm also thinking about, how to train up the next generation of futurists. So one of the questions I held for myself as I was finishing the edits was, are there some principles like gravity that are fundamental to foresight? Because, if you said, Rebecca, you're going to die next week, What would be the things I would want to teach people? Not everybody can learn all the things we know and use in foresight, but are there so yes, 6 first principles of foresight, things that if you do these in any combination, you can have better futures. I believe this stuff in my bones. And I want to give a shout out to my colleague, Ty Lewis. He's 25 years old. He loves these 6 principles so much that he, earlier this week, embedded them in a talk he was doing for United Ways across the Midwest. And I thought, man, if Ty's going to do that, if he's moved by this, why don't I do what I can? So what I'm working on right now is improving this keynote around these 6 principles. And the VIDA audience was awesome yesterday. They really resonated. They really responded. I know some of you are like, Rebecca, what are these 6 principles? So let me pull them up for you right now. The first one I know is to slow down. So the idea being that you can't future fast. If you want to build brighter futures, you need to slow down. And signals and sense making is one of the ways that we slow down. The second one, and I'll post a PDF on my Substack right after this. But the second one is to think in multiple futures. Too often when we think about the future, we plan for like one outcome, right? Like I'm going to lose 20 pounds before the end of the year. Well, that is a wonderful goal to have, but a lot can happen between now and the end of the year. And we should think in multiple plausible futures. If you want a more resilient future, you need to create some margin around it so that if things go terribly wrong or things go surprisingly well, you're still building a very resilient future. So when you are doing foresight, think in terms of multiple futures, not just the one that you hope will come true. The third thing, people support what they help build. Most of us need help making whatever the future vision is or our wild, ambitious goal. We need help making it come true. And so I don't know, it doesn't work if you design the future and the vision and then you say to people, here it is, everybody yoke up. I mean, isn't the truth everybody wants innovation, but nobody wants to change, right? So a better approach, and I learned this from Scott Focht, another shout out, Vice President of Strategy at the Omaha Public Power District, that if you want people to support your vision, you should engage them in the process. So that's principle number 3. Principle number 4, better futures need better stories. When I was with the Virginia Economic Developers yesterday, I asked one of the conveners, like, what are you working on? He said, oh, we're bringing all these data centers in. I said, how's it going? He's like, well, our fall election has made it like the divisive issue. And he's like, I just can't win. And I said, well, where is the fight happening? Is it happening during debates? He's like, no, it's all happening on Facebook. So after my talk about these 6 principles, he came up to me. He's like, you know what I realized? I don't have a story about the future of our community with these data centers. He's like, I know it in my head. I see it in my head, but I haven't told it out loud. And that is so true. We have a natural tendency as humans to spiral into like the bad news. And so we need better stories so that we can see what's possible. You hear it all the time, among, young lesbians who say, Rebecca, it's so important to see, somebody of your archaic age succeeding. When you see it, you can believe it. So we've got to be better storytellers about these positive stories. Principle number 5 is to focus on the essential you. So I think this probably makes sense for you, but I'll tell a real quick story. I'm working with a children's hospital, one of the top children's hospitals in the country right now. And they have a new CEO who is a true visionary, somebody who I am learning to love. Just amazing. I am inspired by her. She is kicking ass. And she missed our last training because she was at the CHA and AHA annual conferences. But her team told me that before she came, they had like 40 goals as an executive team. And after the new CEO came, she said, we're going to narrow this down to 6 or 7. And they said it has made such a difference because we are focusing on the essential few things we must get right to have success. So number 5, focus on the essential few. And then number 6, nothing changes until someone changes. And here I had a burst of inspiration. I put that principle up, the words, nothing changes until someone changes. And then my next slide was just a picture of Rosa Parks sitting not in the back of the bus. And there was spontaneous applause. Now, if you sit in any kind of a leadership position within your organization, I would say you need to be the first one to change. You need to be the first one to change. So at the end of the day, Better Futures is about engaging people in what that bold visionary future can be, slowing down to do it, engaging people along the way, telling a really powerful story about what that future can look like, and then leading first. So that's what's on my desktop right now. I'm going to continue to refine these, and I would love your feedback. Like, does this hold up for you? Do these 6 principles hold up when you think about what it takes to build brighter futures? Okay, now it's time for open mic. I know we're small but mighty here today. We're going to grow this audience. We're going to grow this community over the coming Fridays. But is there anybody who you think deserves a shout out? Somebody who's building a brighter future, an organization that you're like, man, they've put a stake in the ground and they are nailing it. This is the open mic part of the conversation. Would love to know who you're noticing for their awesome work. Who are you noticing for their awesome work? Who are you paying attention to? I know it takes a minute for the chat to catch up. I know a few of the people on the chat. I've got a mom on this chat who once again is teaching volleyball to a bunch of young adolescents, which is its own kind of goat rodeo. And investing in our kids, I can't think of a better way to build a brighter future than to be present and a fun, responsible, available adult. I know other people in this chat who are working with immigrants to help them get settled and feel productive and connected. You know who you are. Okay, I'm going to drop in then to my take home challenge. So this is kind of like a try this at home. And here it is. A lot of people have anxiety. A lot of people have anxiety. People I love, people I know well. And Xanax is the drug of choice. But I want to invite you in your own life to try a different drug of choice. I'm not saying get off your prescriptions, talk to your doctor. That is not what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying. When people think about the future, they often feel anxious. And the antidote to anxiety, in my opinion, is action. And this isn't just my opinion. This is my lived experience. So, and just today, I heard an amazing story about somebody who said, climate change used to make me so nervous and I was so afraid. And what she started to do is within her organization, she started to challenge, like, are we taking too many flights places? Is there a way that we could take fewer flights or more direct flights? Even if we have to pay more, it would cut the carbon emissions, et cetera. And she continued to do that. She sort of became a sustainability champion within her organization. And now she works full time for an environmental organization. So she could have stayed anxious and worried, but instead she started to sort of speak up. So my take home challenge for you today is, can you turn your anxiety into action? Let me know if you try it. Let me know if it works. So with that, I'm going to say over and out, everybody. We're going to make these as long as they need to be and not a moment longer. I appreciate you. I believe in you. We have each other. We need each other. Let's go build brighter futures.